Welcome to another Symposia Soundbites. I'm Andy Vance with Feedstuffs. Balchem hosted a pre-conference symposium at the Penn State Dairy Cattle Nutrition Workshops where a number of academics and experts talked about some really interesting topics in dairy cattle nutrition. One of the speakers at the symposium, fellow Buckeye Bob Hostetler, who is with ST Genetics. Bob, when we dig into your presentation, if you had to describe your talk in 60 seconds or less, what did you talk about at the symposium?
Basically, we're looking for cows that will stay in the herd for a long time. In order to do that, you have to have healthy calves. If you don't have healthy calves, you won't have good cows. And so one of the really important ways of getting that done is with colostrum, and we measure that with serum protein in the blood of the calf. And so what can I do to do that better? Well, there's some answers for that. Balchem has one of them.
You've described yourself, I've heard a couple times, as just a feed guy.
Yep.
Feed being near and dear to my heart at Feedstuffs. If you were going to talk about the feed implications of getting a healthy calf raised, walk us through some general concepts, things that you've learned in your research.
One of the things, I work at the Ohio Heifer Center, and so we're very much interested in what we call eco-feed, which is the efficiency of gain as well as the efficiency of making milk. And so when we first started this, one of the big surprises is we had two full sisters that we measured every ounce they ate. We took their weight every 2 weeks. We know exactly what their feed conversion was. And so full sisters, they both gained at exactly what we expected them to, but one of them ate 40% less feed than the other. Now, does that matter? Oh, you bet it does. And so can we get more of that? Well, it ends up that it's a fairly heritable trait. So that's what we're busy doing.
Bob, a minute ago you mentioned Reassure and what you've seen in feeding that at the Heifer Center. You explain that a little bit more, what your findings are as you've included that in your diets.
We started feeding Reassure a year ago in August, and we found that about 4 weeks after we started feeding it, then serum protein levels in the calves jumped about 0.4 of a point, which is just amazing. And as I followed those calves along, then we have significantly fewer treatments and significantly less death loss, as well as better gains when they come into their growth area that we measure an awful lot. So there is a pretty significant impact on the health of the calves that is really measurable.
Healthier animals because of what we're including in the diet.
That's correct. In mama. So,
well,
yeah.
So let's take that a little further, because you're back to this concept of fetal programming. So what we feed the mother has a huge impact on what we see out of those calves.
Yes, and we feed Reassure for the last 21 to 28 days of the pre-birth time. And so that's not very long, it's not very much expense, and yet it changes the health of the calf and the productivity of the animal for the rest of its life, just from 3 weeks.
So you're working for a genetics company, but you're a feed guy. So let's talk about what have we found the role and the interplay between nutrition and genetics, because I'm guessing there's some pretty important linkages and connections there that we should understand.
There are, and of course we've all known to breed for protein and butterfat and things like that. We continue to do that with a lot of success, but the epigenetic side of things, which that's why I use a Reassure from Balchem, is to help the genetics actually be expressed in the calf, that it can absorb the IgGs and other proteins from the colostrum much more efficiently, which gives me a big advantage all the way through that animal's life, according to Cornell. And I'm a Buckeye, but I'll sing Cornell's praise here.
And so you take that back then to those full sibs you were talking about earlier in your research, where same genetics,
yep,
but very different outcomes in terms of the efficiency aspect.
Well, we now measure the serum protein level in every calf that's born. We measure the quality of the colostrum that we feed them. And so we can keep track of all of that stuff. And that's how we know that both the quality of the colostrum and the absorbability of the calf for the proteins there are fairly highly genetically controlled. And yet we do all sorts of things, including prenatal feeding, that reduce the genetic opportunity that the calf has as it grows. So we want to help them take advantage of all the genetic opportunities they have.
Let's take this to the practical realm for the nutritionist. So you're a feed guy talking to a room full of nutritionists. If there's one thing you hope that they wrote down from your talk, what would you say would be a takeaway? You said, man, don't miss this.
Profitability is absolutely connected to the efficiency that we can get. How do we get more efficient animals is a question that all of us as nutritionists should be asking.
Bob Hostetler with ST Genetics, one of the speakers at a star-studded lineup at the Balchem Pre-Conference Symposium from the Penn State Dairy Cattle Nutrition Workshops. From Feedstuffs, I'm Andy Vance.